You're listening to Errol Parker and Clancy Overall, editors of the Batuta Advocate on Desert Rock FM. Welcome back to the Batuta Advocate radio show, recording live here in downtown Batuta. A lot's been going on over the last couple of years. We say that at the start of every interview. But we're not going to talk about this virus. That's not what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the other developments that have been taking place in the global economy. Of course, the virus that we're not going to talk about has created a lot of hurdles in the global economy, but there's been some developments, and it's been a changing landscape. Batuta Advocate were pioneers of reporting on cryptocurrencies in Australia, well before any of the major newspapers. And today we're talking about something else. We're talking about a little thing called NFTs. Now, are you familiar with NFTs, Errol?
Yes, I am, and I'm actually shocked that you are considering you don't even use net banking.
No, absolutely not. I don't trust.
We've only just got you onto smartphones.
I don't trust, and rightly so. There's a healthy skepticism towards anything that involves a computer. Luckily, we were convinced to take the newspaper online, though, all those years ago, because that skepticism nearly buried us. But I guess that is what NFTs are.
Internet-based.
And
on computers.
And it's something that is solely dependent on computers. I guess an industry, would you say? To talk about this concept of NFTs today, we are joined by a world-famous graffiti artist. We thought that today's guest, Scottie Marsh, might be able to explain this a bit better as someone who, I guess, has been involved in many dark arts over the years. There's the murals you've done, commissioned or otherwise, you know what I'm saying? And, of course, now delving into the Wild West known as the NFT. Can you introduce yourself, Scottie? You've been on the podcast before, but would you like to explain to the listeners your background?
My background. So I guess originally I was a graffiti artist in the most traditional sense. So running around, painting trains, throwing rocks at security guards, just that typical kind of thing.
Very offline behaviour.
Yeah, very offline, very much in the real world. And then from that kind of evolved into painting larger scale murals, painting a lot of murals around political satire and stuff like that and social commentary. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now.
And you're joined today by a partner in grime in the shape of Adam Decata. Adam, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Adam. I work with Scott on some NFT strategy and implementation of the blockchain. Just a guy from Melbourne that has gone way too deep into the blockchain itself and come out for a fresh breath of air. So, yeah.
Now, Adam, in that brief introduction, you've used a few words that the average listener may not be familiar with. I won't ask you to explain them one by one.
80% of our listeners, they listen to this TV show in Land Cruisers, in tractors, when they're cutting about town in the car. So for those people, the absolute complete layperson when it comes to things such as the blockchain and NFTs, cryptocurrency in general, what is an NFT?
Okay, so it's no different from what you would receive if you bought a purchase, like some memorabilia, for instance.
Yep.
And there's a letter of authentication that says that on this date, this person may have signed this or kicked a football with it, and this is the product that's that someone's selling for that reason. So that letter of authentication is a piece of paper, right? In most cases, that has a stamp of approval from either the person that's verifying it or an entity that's verifying it. The blockchain and digital NFTs, which are these digital tokens, is the same thing, but on a ledger, so on the blockchain or on the internet itself. So, at this point in time, we can prove that this piece of digital art was created by, we'll use Scott as an example, Scott, and it's at this time that someone bought it and purchased it. So it's a digital letter of authentication is the best way of explaining something like this.
Yeah, I found the easiest way to, because it took me a long time for the penny to kind of drop with this kind of stuff. And the best kind of way that I've found to kind of wrap my head around it is it was a way of giving authentication to digital assets. So you always think of, we live in a physical world, so you've got this bottle, that's a bottle, whatever. On the computer, you've got a piece of digital art, and it's never had any value before because you feel like you can just right-click save, and then you've got it for free.
Yep.
Whereas in the physical world, you'd have the Mona Lisa. You can get a perfect replica of the Mona Lisa, but it has no value whatsoever.
Yeah.
Just the Mona Lisa has the value because that's the authentic original piece of art, and everything else is a copy.
Yep.
So that's the best way that I kind of found to kind of wrap my head around. So for people creating digital work, it gives them an avenue to actually create work that's authentic, that's theirs, that they can sell, that retains its value. And for people like me who create work in real life on the street that just gets fucking destroyed all the time by people who don't agree with the message, or councils paint over it, or just the nature of painting outside, the weather takes its toll. I have a way of creating work, putting that on the blockchain in a digital space, so then I've got this authentic digital piece of that work and a piece of memorabilia from that work that lasts forever. Mm-hmm. And the possibilities digitally, it's like a whole nother tool when making art. It's like a whole nother colour on your palette, you know what I mean? Yep. So basically anything's possible once you start thinking you can animate things and do all this other stuff.
Yep.
It's pretty exciting for me as an artist.
Yep.
Especially with a lot of my old murals, because like take the George Michael mural, for example, that I painted, then it was destroyed, then it was fixed, then it was destroyed again, then there was a second iteration of the mural. I'm kind of working on creating those murals digitally and telling the story of the murals with that digital piece, if that makes sense. So it's not just the physical artwork, it's the whole story that goes with it.
The blockchain would be, I guess, you could explain the blockchain where a lot of this stuff is legitimized as the internet's version of an auction house. Is that a way of putting it, Adam?
It's one tool of it, yeah, for sure. I think, like what sort of Scott, I love his Mona Lisa interpretation, because it's very true. It's sort of like the NFT is just an asset, right? It just so happens to be digital. But, like the fact that you can trade that asset between you and I, so I could go and buy a collectible of some type or a piece of art that's being, tokenized. It means that I can then put it on the marketplace and someone else can buy it. And it's all powered by the blockchain. So that timestamp, the owner of that wallet, via, it's all there. So there's a true level of provenance to all of this. And the best part is, as an artist, if we're going to use that as the example, is that Scott also receives trailing commission from each purchase moving forward, which is epic and never been able to be done in real world.
In the real art world.
Oh yeah, for sure. By the time you're dead and your work's worth a shit ton of money, no one from your family or your estate or anyone's getting a piece of that. Piece of that action.
So, can you tell us, Scott, then how you, as someone, as we said, your formative years were spent putting up panels on council trains, running from the fuzz. Bulls on parade.
After throwing rocks at them.
Yep.
They threw rocks at me first.
Yeah.
They're big rocks, like on the rails. They would hurt so much to get hit in the back with one of them.
If you're in the middle of painting something and a track rock goes flying past your head, you're like, whoa! Somebody's seen us.
And so, how did you find this new realm? Like, obviously your art went from the side of trains to the side of very scary overpasses to the side of buildings. Yeah. You ended up in galleries. This is real life. This is not online. Yeah. And you've sold works alongside some of Australia's most famous artists. How did you then look at the internet as the new way to do what you do?
Well, I've been pretty fortunate, just timing wise. I just grew up as a graffiti writer, and then because of that, I kind of hit the wave of street art when it became like the new art movement. And I remember when graffiti and street art and murals was completely frowned upon by the establishment.
Yeah.
It still kind of is in this country, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I've been on the cusp of kind of a new, I guess, art movement or new art revolution, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And this feels just like that. It's the kind of new, I think, huge art movement for visual arts, but I think that just the technology in general is going to impact all of our lives the same way that the internet does. Yep. Like you buy a ticket to the footy, it's going to be an NFT. And if you want to scalp it, you can scalp it, but a percentage of that sale will automatically go back to the creator.
Yep.
Yeah. Or you buy an album, it's the same. All these different things can be put on the blockchain. So the technology is incredible, but for me, I feel like I'm lucky enough to catch the wave potentially of 2 art movements, which I think is pretty fucking rare.
Yeah. Now, well, tell us. First, we've gotten this far into this interview without actually explaining what NFT stands for.
Yeah.
What's that?
Ask Adam.
Adam?
I don't know.
Non-fungible token.
Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
So the difference between like a fungible token is, what something fungible is like if you and I were to exchange like a $10 note, for instance.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I give you a $10 note and you give me, $10 in coins, it's still the same
Half a
value,
stick.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And a non-fungible item is something that can't be replicated, or, so if I borrowed, your car and then returned the same model of car, but it didn't have the air freshener in it and didn't have the kilometers that it matched up to, it's not directly replaceable, right?
Okay.
So I think, there's so much to go into with this sort of stuff, but one of the big parts of what a non-fungible token allows you to do is that you can say that a particular thing is of 1 or of 100 editions.
Yeah.
And the power of that is that, I remember reading an article about a particular model of Ferrari that was released. And, I think there was a couple of hundred that were meant to have been sold, but then they've done an audit and found out that there were more than what was said in the end that are available in market. Whilst here, the way that blockchain and the technology can allow us to verify things. If Scott says that he's selling 10 editions of this particular piece of artwork, that's all that it can be, because that's what's public knowledge on the blockchain. There's nothing to mess around with. And if he does mess around with it, it's also seen there as another transaction. So there's some power in the fact that you can verify and authenticate via doing something like this. So yeah, the movement is forever evolving, and it's still at a very vanilla stage of sort of understanding or even exploration within technology itself. But it's super exciting to see that, I love being transparent, and I love the fact that we can be held accountable to something. And, the power of the blockchain allows us to do these things in a technology that sort of allows not just a revenue arm, but, that people can trade upon it. And there are reasons to why people are paying absurd amounts of money for these digital assets now that are verified by the blockchain.
Yeah.
Is because they can prove that, there is a level of provenance that exists. And, imagine only having a 1 of 1 edition, and the only 1 of 1 edition of something in the world.
Like the Wu-Tang album. Like that one Wu-Tang album that Martin Scully bought.
Correct, exactly.
Yeah. And so like basketball cards, like there's a platform called NBA Top Shots, which is a joint venture with the NBA. I was really fortunate to get into it relatively early. I have no clue about NBA, by the way. So, it was a learning curve for me just to understand what players that I was unpacking out of like a pack of 4. And, one of my colleagues and a dear friend of mine, David, pulled like a jersey number, which I learned all this whilst just mucking around with it, right? And apparently a jersey number for a player is more prestigious than getting a number 1 serial of something. And he pulled a jersey number LaMelo Ball, which LaMelo is like this, this basketballer that, is meant to be, I think he broke his arm halfway through the season or something, but, rookie listed, like rookie of the year sort of card moment. And this digital asset, you got for $9 in a pack and was able to sell it for...
Come on, how much?
Like almost a Bitcoin at the time. So like probably like $55,000 plus a couple of other moments.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
So
the reason why someone was willing to pay for that is that they can say that this was 100% the jersey number of this particular pack. And, and it's now theirs, and no one else can copy that. It's all validated on the blockchain itself. Does someone deem that value to be what it should be or not? And that's what the person wants to pay for it. That's what they're going to pay for it. But the reality is that, there are other basketball moment cards that, these moments they call, that were selling for like $250,000 that came from a similar pot of
it is kind of cool,
$14 packs, right?
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Crazy.
I'm a huge NBA guy, but instead of just getting a card, you're getting like the moment. You're like, I'm going to buy the game-winning shot from like the finals, blah, blah, blah.
Really?
Yeah, and you've got the one of that shot, whatever it is.
So an NFT is only really
it's a little bit
worth
mind-blowing.
as much as someone's willing to pay for it.
Yeah, it's like anything.
Yeah,
I
it's
guess.
like art. Yeah, right.
Scott's got to tell you about his prized possessions in his digital wallet at the moment that he's got, because you and I might not see the value, but Scott definitely did at the time, and others did around him, because it's just some crazy projects.
Yeah, I fell into I was stuck in a 14-day isolation, which I think a lot of people have recently, and by the end of it I was going a bit nutty, and I spent an alarming amount of money on crypto dick butts.
Okay.
Right. A series of little dudes that are like dicks with butts and dicks on their butts.
So like a kind of, I guess you'd say, like a Terry Denton cartoon kind of Day My Bum Went Psychos type stuff.
Yeah, so they all have like different traits and different rarities of the traits. So there's 5,000 of these dick butts, and each one's unique, and people trade them and stuff like this.
So you got into about day 10 of isolation, you started getting into dick butts?
That was day 13.
Okay.
So
Right.
I was really starting to get...
So can you tell
Things
us
are getting weird.
about some of the NFTs that you guys own? I mean, like what's the most valuable NFT you've got?
Don't have to tell us your actual, you don't have to tell us your worth.
No,
But tell us what you
how
think.
much is it like how much is
Well, I've been watching
like,
this stuff from
your
the
average
sidelines
worth?
for a long time
Yeah.
until this kind of dick butt thing took over
Right.
my life for a few weeks. But I have a very rare vampire dick butt with a pickle.
Yep.
Yep.
Pickle's rare.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my most
Okay.
Yeah. right.
treasured NFT possession.
And is it a valued asset? Is it accruing value?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
I'm going to create generational wealth of dick butts. That's the
Yep.
plan.
but these are sort of glorified membership or community projects, right? So there's 5,200 crypto dick butts in the world, and if you want to be part of that community, you need to buy into that crypto dick butt to get access to it, right?
Yeah.
Look, like there's some really great wins, and there's some major learnings, and something in between, and all of it.
But it is very similar to baseball cards in their purest form. Mint condition.
Yeah.
And people who don't understand baseball or basketball
Would see no value in
they'd
it.
see no value in it.
Yeah.
Pokemon cards was a big one. A lot of kids have held onto them and found value on the old holographic Charizard.
Yeah. Well, it really is a similar kind of thing.
It's a similar concept
Yeah.
where those on the outside don't understand this dick butt thing, but those who are in on it, there's value in it. It's a collectible.
Yeah. And also with these kind of collections, they double. Like for me, they become like a community token. You know what I mean? So you're part of this kind of club, and you converse with all the other dick butt owners within Discord, which is this kind of messaging app, which I think is a big part of these NFT collections. It's just a better space to communicate, I've found. Social media is you kind of go in there, write someone off, get out, where this is like an ongoing conversation kind of thing.
So you guys are, I guess, the way it's kind of being described to us today is you guys are on the fringe. I mean, you're on the wave, Scotty, as in the same way you were on the wave of street art becoming sellable, collectible art in galleries. You're now on the wave of this NFT thing.
Yeah.
Are there people out there, for example, mainstream? We're talking mainstream now, like not on the fringe. I mean, was it the Kings of Leon released an NFT album? Like, as far as this whole thing goes, what are some of the, milestone moments in this mainstreamization of NFTs?
Stephen Curry
Yeah.
from the Golden State Warriors, he just bought a Bored Ape, which is like one of these NFT collectible collections. It's one of the more prestigious ones.
Yeah. There's a
and-
golfer too, Bryson DeChambeau's got a bunch of you can buy an NFT of one of his long drives.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So it's like, this is an NFT of my longest ever drive on tour.
Yeah, exactly. And then you own that moment kind of forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool. It's hard to conceptualize this because it's within the digital world and we're out here in the physical world. once the penny kind of drops, which takes a while. For me, my penny drop moment was dick butts, which is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
But once the penny drops, then it really does.
So it does recalibrate. You have to, like, it requires recalibrating, whereas you buy a bunch of Picassos, the reason unless you're an absolute collector sicko, you're going to keep them stored out the back where no one can see them. But most people want to put their paintings on the walls in their house, right? Yeah. Or in a museum. You've got to recalibrate how people view and hold on to art, for example, with what you're doing. It sits in a wallet in your phone that you show people at dinner parties, or...
Well, a lot of people are using them as
group chats.
Or they're, like, in NFT Twitter, for example, it's almost become the equivalent, I think, of, like, rappers with their big gold chains.
Yep.
Everyone's using them as their display pictures, so it's a big flex to have your expensive NFT as your display picture.
Okay.
And like Adam said as well, it's in such early stages. You know, there are people, you'll print out your NFT in a physical form, or maybe you have a screen that rotates through your collection in your house, or you just keep it on your wallet, or you keep it online because it's a digital, a digital asset in a digital world.
Yeah, but, you know, like you were just talking about that Discord community within Dickbucks, you could only verify yourself if you had that digital token, right? So there's multiple cases of utility, but there's still been explored. I think it's I don't know, how many people who have a Picasso actually have it on their wall and don't store it in some form of storage, you know, for investment. Same for a car that might be a classic or a limited edition of some type.
Like a Jay Leno car. Just in an airplane somewhere near an airport,
Totally. You know, like, you know, that Holden HQ that, you know, is now being wrapped around too many poles that now has, you know, that... the status that obviously it's not being reproduced, but, you know, and most of them are becoming rust buckets. But for the very few that are of the quality that they are, they've, you know, like, are they driving them every weekend? I'm not sure. But, you know, like, there's a supply and demand thing here where, you know, limited demand and oversupply will obviously drive prices to something that someone's willing to pay, right?
So art is logical, art makes sense, but as for like the mainstream goods and services that people know, you've just mentioned Holden vehicles, and it's pretty hard to keep one of them in your iPhone. But like, what are we talking here? Can you, like, something that everyone would be familiar with is buying an album, you know, or buying a ticket to the footy. What kind of things that actually can play a role in day-to-day life as opposed to just an asset that accrues value or doesn't?
It's mostly like what we explore is like digital utility. So you know, like if and there's some crazy things, right? Like try and wrap your head around this sort of stuff. But there's, believe it or not, there's actually a multiple metaverses out there on the blockchain where there's virtual land and worlds. It's like you can buy.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So you can buy a digital land, you know, and you can build on that digital land and have a 3D model of your house. And, you know, like it is, and it's crazy. Like I work with one of the projects, Decentraland. So, and it's completely decentralized. So like 4 years ago, 90,000 parcels of land were sold. And, you know, today there's multiple different buildings. Coca-Cola is doing stuff in there. Sotheby's is doing stuff in there. You know, like it's, it's like crazy, you know, like, but if you hold, you know, this dick butt, and dick butts have their virtual head office or like their virtual clubhouse in there, you can hang out with, you know, your peers only because you've got that digital wallet that, allows you to have that virtual all access pass. And, you know, like there's so much you can do digitally with these things, but at the core of it, it's like what people are buying them in for is the hope that either that they really like it and that they don't plan on selling it and they want to be part of the community, or that there are going to be people out there that see the appeal that they can sell this to.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, like it is a wild west, you know, like, and very much financially driven out there in the crypto world. But what the technology is allowing people to do is have these verifiable assets, which, you know, like I've only ever sold one NFT. I've held on to every one of mine, and I regret selling the one that I did. And I don't know why I did, to be honest, because it was like...
You sound like a boomer in the property market.
Capital gains tax, right? Like, but, you know, like the reality is there are a lot of people that flip, you know, and, you know, like that sort of, you know, they make maybe a quick buck or they might lose a quick buck out of doing so. But, you know, the way that we're working with Scott on his project is, you know, that it allows you to get access we're going to create like a virtual, we might talk about the project in a sec, but, like it gives you access to Scott, it allows you to have, like an opportunity to win things that he might be putting up. There's like, we're doing this thing in the virtual world as well, which we'll probably explain shortly, but, there are benefits for holding the token that are part of, a glorified Scott Marsh community as such, not too different from what he might have on Instagram or Facebook. But, at the same time, we can't verify audiences like we can on
it's almost like a digital, like, when you go to RSL, you need your RSL card.
Yeah.
It's almost like a digital version of that. So you get all the benefits of having that card, whether it's cheaper drinks or whatever.
So basically, like early this week, Clancy and I released our 5th book, and we did that through, the normal traditional way of, going to a book publisher through an agent, and we did all of that stuff. That's, it's the same kind of method that's been done for, hundreds of years. Whereas if we were just to release one copy of that book as an NFT, where the only person who can read it is the person who's got the NFT.
Yeah.
So do you think that's what's going to be the future, where, you can only say, for example, if we wanted to sell 250 copies of our
say
book.
You sold 250 copies of your book. Once I buy one copy of those 250, I've finished reading it. What do I want to do with it? I'll sell it to someone else who hasn't read it yet.
Yeah.
In that sale, you guys will get a trailing commission of that resale.
Yeah.
And then they'll sell it on to the next person
Like
who wants to read it. And some people might keep it as a collectible. You know what I mean? So down the track, when someone really wants to read the first, whatever it is, Batuta
So
book.
this has the real potential to shake up a lot of industries.
Yeah, big time.
Right.
Yeah, stop selling your soul.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the thing, as an artist, like, you got to, I guess as a musician, there's always been a concept of royalties.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As someone who paints things, you don't get that. You got to paint forever and keep selling work forever. And by the time your work has value, other people own it. You don't own it anymore, and they'll be selling it on the secondary market, making a packet.
Yeah.
And then you're in the studio still trying to paint stuff. So it's completely flipped the whole art market and the dynamic, I think, and the relationships between kind of galleries and artists and stuff on its head.
Well, you guys have still got me. I think you nearly lost me when we started talking about virtual land passes.
I pulled out of that pretty quick.
Yeah. There's layers to this shit. I know.
There's layers.
But before the people who are currently harvesting on real land parcels out in the the regional areas listening in right now, before they switch off, we'll keep the momentum and we'll start talking about what you guys are working on. So you two have teamed up.
Yeah, when all this stuff kind of started happening, I've been sitting on the sidelines for about a year, kind of turning murals into digitalized versions of themselves and stuff like that. And then I'll have periodical calls with Adam, and he'll blow my mind with some fucking metaverse shenanigans.
Metaverse.
Yeah. And it all came about, he was explaining these generative NFT projects. So basically, I'm creating one of these projects which will double as a community token, like we've been talking about. And they're basically bin chickens. They're called bin kings. So I've created...
Bin chickens. So
you're making your own dick butts.
Your own idea.
Yeah, in a sense. Yeah.
In a sense, right.
So based on the beautiful Australian ibis.
Yeah.
Okay.
The smelly flamingo.
Yeah.
So I've hand painted 6 bin chickens, all in different colorways. I've hand painted about a dozen different backgrounds to the image, all in different colorways. And then I've created kind of pixelized versions of different traits, and the traits being different hats, different sunnies. One's got pink eyes, looks like he's been fucking sucking a few too many bugs. Chains, things on their chest, high vis, different shoes, different items that they come with, etc.
So it's basically you've created Springfield. Springfield with ibises.
Yeah.
The bin kings.
But so basically, when you mint one of these, you get a randomly generated bin chicken that each traits have different rarities, and then they become collectible from how rare they are, and then they give you access to things with my work going forward. So in the same way that you would a membership card to a club or something like that. So
So when are we going? When are you launching these bin chickens?
This Wednesday coming, 9 a.m. Yeah, so there's 6,969 of them, 6,969 because That's a funny
Classic graphic stuff.
and they cost 0.069 ETH each. So basically, you need to set up a digital wallet, have some Ethereum in that wallet, which you can do. And on the website for our project, there's a whole basically how-to fact sheet of how to walk people through that step by step.
Binkings.com.
Binkings.com.
BINKINGZ.
Okay, Z. King Z.
Yeah.
Now, how many did you say you just done again?
6969. 6,969.
You've done that many characters.
So they randomly generate.
Yeah.
So basically, when you mint a bin chicken, you don't know what you're getting. It'll randomly generate from all those. There's about 100 traits and all the different color bin chickens.
Okay.
And it'll kick out a bin chicken to you, and then you see next to it, it'll say, 2% have this type of sunnies, 20% have this high vis vest, 30% have a pinger.
Yeah.
And it goes through all the traits. You're like, wow, I got a rare one. And you can either sell that or hold on to it and get the privileges that kind of come with it, with holding onto one of those.
Okay.
So just quickly, there's been a bit of criticism about, now that we're, in a heightened state of our carbon emissions and all this stuff like that, is that cryptocurrency transactions, they take a lot of energy, and especially working with NFTs that most people don't consider critical to the world going around. How bad are NFTs for the environment?
There's something that I grapple with, especially in the beginning when this thing started booming about a year ago, because obviously a lot of my work and a lot of my focus has been pretty focused on climate change and what's going on with the environment. But I think it's a bit of misunderstanding that came through one article, but Adam's probably better to understand the ins and outs and the minutiae of it, because...
Yeah, the assumption was that, thousands to millions of these NFTs were being minted on the blockchain daily, for instance. And, the concern was around what the effect would be. The reality is that on the Ethereum blockchain, no matter if we mint one NFT or a million, it doesn't actually change the output. So it's more of a concern with the blockchain technology as a whole. But at this point in time, yes, there is emissions. How do they compare to a lot of other things? It's very little, but most of the people that are concerned with it are saying, do we actually need it or not? Yeah. When, the reality is that this technology is forever evolving. There's more upgrades to these blockchains moving forward that will make them next to nothing. And there's a whole heap of things.
So the emissions are just coming from computers, just
power. Yeah, it's power.
Yeah, right. So that is interesting that emissions is something that gets pinned to this world so heavily. And it's almost like, you can start looking at the people who are, this kind of economy might be disrupting are actually people that are relying on carbon emissions anyway, heavily. So, you start going into tinfoil's hat off everyone. But, it is common knowledge nowadays that the idea of a digital... the idea of a carbon footprint was actually, a concept created by BP in the sense of, let's put this back on the individual as opposed to the million barrels of oil we just spilt in the Mexican Gulf.
The blockchain technology is so disruptive to the financial system, to all these different things. So I think if there's any group of individuals who are using it, or artists, I think are a good and generally ethically kind of sound group that are really concerned with these kind of issues. So I think it's something that pressure from those people kind of will drive change.
Right.
It's just power at the end of the day. So it's how do we find power that doesn't result in fucking coal mines, power stations.
But not to go too deep into it, but the concern more is with Ethereum as a blockchain, which is a proof of work versus a proof of stake. And basically the approval process of each transaction that goes through requires someone to approve it, which is where the electricity comes into power. So look, ultimately, as we sort of explore the realm of all of this, we'll get more efficient, but it's nothing to what's any different from driving a car to purchasing something on a debit card in in Redfern,
having a cool room at the back of your house with a 60-inch flat screen and an air-conditioned living room, which is the dream.
The Scott Spa.
my Bunnings jacuzzi, bro.
Yeah,
I bought this Bunnings jacuzzi. It's the greatest thing I've ever bought.
A Bunnings hot tub.
Yeah, best $700 I've ever spent in my life.
That sounds like a 14-day isolation job, I think. Well, we look forward to seeing how the 6969 Bin Kings goes, gentlemen. This is a brave new world.
And maybe our next book will be an NFT.
Yeah, perhaps. We'll make one copy for the biggest sicko in the world.
And he'll have to give us 10 of those Bitcoins.
Let's take the Batuta to the virtual world. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, look, where our ears are open. Again, thank you for using as clear a language as you could for both us and the listener. But yeah, I think I have a pretty good gauge on this thing now. Maybe time to invest in a 6-story virtual apartment block in the multiverse.
Well, actually, one of the other things that we're doing with this Bin Kings project is we're actually building a Bin King sanctuary in Decentraland that will be there for eternity, so that you can go visit that sanctuary, hang out with the bin chickens and the rest of the Bin Kings.
Well, thanks for joining us today, fellas. What an interesting and insightful discussion.
Yeah.
Awesome, boys. Thanks for having us.
All right. I look forward to seeing some of these Bin Kings flying around.
Yeah.